nephew Pierre, and today we have a great guest for you talking about our topic, the legal profession. With us today is Mr. Richard Celestin. He's really known as the inspirational lawyer. And we're going to get into his legal skills, his entrepreneurial skills, and his motivational skills. And he's going to help us figure out what legal professions are cool, what he does in the legal field, and how you can apply it to yourself if you have a dream of being a lawyer or anything else that's legal. So let's not wait. How you doing today, Mr. Richard?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate the opportunity to interview with you. So thank you for that.
Thank you. You're welcome. If you could tell us a little about yourself, your background, where you've been, and where you're going.
Sure, absolutely. So as was mentioned, my name is Richard Celestin. I was born and raised in Jamaica, Queens. I'm a product of the Queens public school system. I graduated college in Queens, graduated law school in Queens. So Queens is essentially my heart, right? It's my passion is certainly within Queens. I wear multiple professional hats, and the reason why is because I'm a person who feels that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in a lot of areas, and rather than focus on one specific thing, I like to dabble in multiple things so that way I can make a greater impact on different levels. So my primary trade is that I am an attorney. Specifically, I am a solo practicing criminal defense attorney. And so I represent people who have been arrested and are accused of committing crimes, and I represent them in court. Primarily practicing within the city as well as in Long Island, and currently I'm licensed in the state of New York. In addition to that, I have a passion for education and working with youth. So I am also an adjunct professor currently at City Tech, where I teach criminal justice. And I'm also an adjunct professor at Queens College, where I teach a professional development class through the SEEK program. So they're both amazing classes and I love them. I also own and operate an educational consulting business. So I provide support services, skill development, counseling, workshops to elementary, middle, and high school students, administrators, and parents throughout, again, New York City and Long Island. Wow. I also am a self-published author of a couple of books, and also a motivational speaker. So I do a lot of speaking engagements involving, again, young people, young professionals, at-risk youth, parents. So you kind of name it. I've played a role, or I've spoken in front of that audience.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, I was amazed by your work when I met you. When I saw you, and I like to dig in when I see something I like to dig in and go back. And I've seen these wonderful places you worked at, in the colleges, you're in the high schools. You're doing a lot of different things, and that's really your entrepreneurial spirit. And then, so what made you start out with law? When did you first know that, hey, I wanna be a lawyer, I wanna get into the legal field?
So, and that's a great question, right? Because, sometimes people have like that one kind of moment where they convinced, and I think for me, it's more about a series of events that kind of confirm that this is the right profession. When I was young, I was severely bullied and teased in school as a result of my height and my weight, and the fact that my parents, they couldn't afford name brand clothing. So I was bullied and teased, and so I think in my head, I always wanted to be, I saw myself as an adult as being someone who would stand up for someone like me, and to be a voice for someone who was either afraid to express their voice or maybe didn't even have one. And so in thinking about professions, I always saw a lawyer as being someone who would stand and represent and take care of and look out for people. And that's something I wanted to do. And then ultimately, as I continue to go through my educational journey, I realized that I had a particular passion for writing. I enjoyed debate, and then in understanding that as lawyers, and just from a very simple level, like I get paid to argue against people, like that, so like that's like the coolest thing in the world, to be able to get paid to do what you love to do. And so now as an attorney, my number one goal is to work with people who, again, are underserved, underrepresented, lack the information, lack the support, lack the resources to really have somebody in their corner, fighting for them, advocating for them, educating and informing them on their rights and their circumstances. And so that's basically my journey. And I'm always finding new reasons and justifications for being a lawyer. So that's where I stand right now.
Well, I like what you just said. You always find new reasons, basically, to keep your flame lit, right, and to keep going and to find a new cause. So I commend you for that and applaud you for that. And I personally want to say thank you for choosing a profession. You have that kind of persona where if you're my lawyer, I feel good. I feel really, really good. So it's working. I wanted to, because you brought up something, I wanted to look at some different careers in the legal profession, right? And I know within being a lawyer, there's different kind of lawyers. So I wanted to show the youth some different options. If you look at the screen, there's a whole bunch of, there's an attorney, there's corporate counsel, there's paralegal, there's a bankruptcy. So can you tell us about any of these?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to kind of lay a foundation. So what's interesting is that, you know, I mentioned in that story when I was younger and wanting to be a lawyer, I really didn't understand the vast opportunities that lay out there in terms of the law, right? I think that, you know, even for a lot of people, they think that criminal law is like the only type of law. And the truth of the matter is that what I tell people is that if you literally can think of anything that can go on over the course of a day, there's a lawyer involved in it somehow, right? You get into a car accident, there are lawyers involved. You need a contract, there's a lawyer involved. You want to sue somebody, you want to get a divorce, you're suspended from a school and you want to fight that, you're producing a video, right? Like you want to become like an athlete and sign a contract. Like there are lawyers basically involved in almost anything. And so seeing this list, there's certainly a lot of, there's a lot of professions. There's a lot of potential employers. You have the non-for-profit area where they hire lawyers. You have in the private sectors, corporations, law firms, both large and small that have attorneys. So, you know, looking at some of this, obviously, you know, you have the criminal defense attorney, which is what I do. Education attorneys, they're attorneys that basically represent people who've been, so you're talking about superintendent suspensions, that attorneys are usually involved in that. Whenever parents are fighting for their rights as it relates to the needs of their children with special needs, there are attorneys that are involved in that. So like there's a lot, entertainment law. So basically, again, when you think about like all of the developing television shows and contracting with people and so on and so forth, there are attorneys that are always involved in that. One of the things I don't see, which I guess may be considered under entertainment, is like sports law. So like you know, if you're an athlete and you're trying to, you know, negotiate contracts, then you need an attorney for that to review the contract to ensure that everything is going, you know, smoothly when it comes to it. Immigration attorney. So my wife happens to be an immigration attorney. And so obviously, yeah, within this, you know, obviously within this, you know, this administration, there's a tremendous amount of, you know, need for immigration attorney and providing services for people. And it's, you know, it's not just about, you know, people that come here legally and, you know, just like, oh, I want to come here legally and take advantage. It's actually not the case for an overwhelming majority of people. Unfortunately, a lot of people leave their countries as out of fear of being killed, out of fear of persecution. So, you know, getting that immigration attorney to assist them in terms of getting, you know, lawfully within the country so that way they can, in fact, you know, pay their taxes and be contributing citizens. So, you know, that's that piece. Talk about bankruptcy for anyone that has to do with bankruptcy. You know, hiring an attorney, the bankruptcy process is incredibly complicated. So having an attorney as a support. You know, real estate is something, you know, purchasing houses, selling houses, foreclosures, like all of that involves, you know, attorneys. Basically, when you think about it, anytime where you have to develop, review, or execute a contract of any kind, it's always strongly advised to have an attorney to review it, to explain it, to break it down into layman's terms, and to ensure that the person signing the contracts understands everything that's in there.
So, wow, thank you. That was a great breakdown. Like you just gave me some new education And one thing I'm gonna tell the youth, learn something new every day. And I just learned a couple of new things right now while we're talking. One question I did have for our kids, two questions. One is real easy. Are lawyers paid? Are you guys paid? Like, what's your income? Is it at the bottom of America, the middle? Like, is it a good field where you can, you can say I can get two houses if I work real hard and apply myself and get that mansion?
Yeah, so again, what's interesting is when you look at this list of attorneys, there's a lot of it depends, right? So if you're working in the nonprofit sector, you're working at a large firm in Manhattan, you're working 80 hours a week, you're working 40 hours a week, right? So there's a lot of variation, but really to kind of give you in a nutshell, an attorney can make $40,000 a year up to $500,000 a year. And again, it all depends on where you are, what you're working, your level of experience, the amount of time that you're putting in there, so on and so forth. So it really depends on your level of experience and the area of the law that you're practicing for, and then also who, in fact, you're working for.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So yes, you will get paid if you give 110% effort and stay on top of your game.
That's it.
And make
As
sure.
with any and all professions, that applies. Yes.
And then one more tagline: your network is your net worth, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
Who your friends are, associates, your mentors are very important to you getting places. Especially like we were talking about earlier, our communities. We need access to internships. We need access to entry-level positions that give us just that footstep in the door. And then it's up to you to how far you want to go in that field. So I definitely want you kids out there to understand that. One thing I wanted to ask you: what is the timeline like to be an attorney? Like, am I taking classes in high school? Am I starting in middle school? So what's the timeline? And then as a young person, 13 and 17, what can I do now to get ready for my next step?
Sure. So I think that, as you mentioned earlier, you're always learning, and there's really no set beginning stage to learn. So I think that, a student in middle school may not be able to like work in a law firm, but they can certainly, enhance their debate skills. They can certainly enhance their writing skills. I think reading up on the law and understanding how the law works, or legal issues, or even social justice issues, I think is incredibly important. And the high school level, I think that's when you can start doing some internships, whether it's over the summer, where you can get into some of those law firms, and most likely it'll be for free, but it's an investment in your professional and personal growth. Yes. So you do those internships. On the college level is when you definitely start thinking a little bit more strategically about, the classes that you want to major in. Again, continuing with internships, potentially getting job opportunities, and then also planning to take, the LSAT exam, which is the exam necessary to get into law school, as well as thinking about law schools to actually get into. So when you think about it from an educational standpoint, obviously in middle school, you got to finish middle school. You're in high school, you obviously got to graduate high school. You get to college, you obviously got to graduate college. When you're in college, usually in your junior, senior year, you take what's called the LSAT exam, which is similar to the SATs, but focuses more on logic and critical thinking. And you use that score along with your GPA to apply to go to law school. And so now once you're in law school is typically 3 years long if you go full time. It can extend to maybe like 4 or 5 years if you go part time, but typically it's 3 years. After you graduate law school, technically you are a lawyer. You've received your degree, which is a JD. However, with the JD, even though that opens up a tremendous amount of opportunities from a career standpoint, the one thing you cannot do is you cannot represent people in a courtroom or even outside of that with just a JD. In order to represent people, you have to be licensed to practice law. In order to be licensed to practice law, you have to take, and this applies to any state in the country, you have to take what's called the bar exam. The bar exam is an intensive exam where they basically test you on all of the areas of law, and you have to basically show proficiency in understanding the law as well as applying the law. New York happens to be ranked as one of the top 5 hardest exams in the country. The exam itself is 2 days long. It's about 14 hours long. It covers 27 different subjects. It's about 250 multiple choice questions and about 8 essays. And it takes you roughly about 2 months of studying 7 days a week, anywhere between 10 to 12 hours a day in order to prepare for it. But at the same time, so that reaction where, you know, usually you tell that, especially to a young person, they're like, no, I'm not trying to do that. But here's the thing. You can't fall in love with the finished product without looking at the process to get there. And so while a lot of people love the idea of walking into a room and saying you're a lawyer or having that ESQ at the end of your name or making those 6 figures, if you love that, you have to fall in love with the process of getting there, which is sacrificing your weekends, sacrificing some relationships, to be honest with you, knowing that you're going to put in 3 years of hardcore dedicated work that you're going to be putting a lot of your personal life on hold for. But then at the end of it, you know that you're going to come out there with one of the most prestigious degrees that anyone could achieve. Plus, on top of that, you'll be making the money. And then on top of that, you're in a position to really help people.
Wow, that is dope. And that is true. I'm going to say one thing. My mother always used to tell me, be a lawyer or a preacher. She used to be like, you should be a preacher. I really thought I was going to go to law school as a, you could say, middle schooler. Mm-hmm. I really like law. I like the fact of, like you said, standing up for someone. I like the legalese. And I liked it without really having a lot of knowledge of it. I just liked it, like the concept of it. But then as part of my true life story, things went sideways, got distracted on folks. I didn't follow law. But today, I do a lot of public speaking. And sometimes I feel like I'm a lawyer. I'm arguing for what our nonprofit believes in, and I'm arguing for our community. So I kind of get the feeling almost of what it's like, and it feels great. So for those that do pursue it, want to pursue it, it's an awesome feeling being able to stand up and understand the rules of our country or any other countries. One big thing, I know kids like music, we got TikTok and all these. That kind of law is trademark law, copyright law. And that's a very lucrative field as well, right? Because you're dealing with royalties, possibly. Yeah. An artist like Michael Jackson, so I could tell, he's passed away. There's a lawyer right now that has to handle his estate to make sure his royalties are getting paid and distributed to his heirs or whoever he left it to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add this one quick piece, because this is something that I'm actually in the process now of speaking to my oldest son about. Kids today are kind of like presented with the law on a level that I know I wasn't, right? Like when I was growing up, I think there was like one lawyer show that was on, and it was like an older white guy, right? Like today you have the Law and Orders, you have How to Get Away with Murder, you have like all of these insane lawyer shows. And what's interesting is that a lot of kids love watching these shows. Yes. I've lost track. I do presentations to students, and when I ask them like how many people love watching lawyer shows, I'm talking like 90% and higher raise their hand. But then what's interesting is that when I turn around and ask them, well, how many would consider a career in the law? Unfortunately, a tiny fraction would consider it. And so one of the lessons I'm teaching my son, and it's something that I would certainly encourage any young person that watches this, that loves watching these lawyer shows, is that in life, you don't want to just be a consumer. You want to be a producer and a creator, right? And the thing is that sitting down and watching these lawyer shows and loving how they operate and loving how they talk and loving how they get dressed up and loving how they're able to help people, it feels great to consume that. But it doesn't have to end there. You have an opportunity to be that person. You have an opportunity to be a creator as an attorney and a producer as an attorney. So don't just be a consumer of the legal shows and think that will never be me, because it certainly can be you. It's just a matter of how bad do you want it to be you.
That is facts. Those are facts right there. Self-determination, dreaming, and just, put your sights high. They say reach for the stars. If you don't make it, you land on a mountaintop. Right? So don't be afraid to do something that you think is hard. Figure out how to do it, the steps to doing it, and work your steps to doing it, and you'll see how easy it is. That's the biggest thing I've learned in my life, working my steps and understanding it. So thank you for that bit of advice. Now, before we go, I did want to ask you if there's anything you wanted to say to youth, even though you've been saying a lot of encouraging things already. Is there one more thing? This has been great. And you're actually surprised. I didn't know your household was a legal household. I wonder how that is when there's a debate going on in the house. How does that work out?
It's interesting. Yeah, debates between my wife and I are certainly interesting. But we also know when to turn it off, and we always know how to have a good laugh. So it works out nicely. But I mean, I think the best advice that I can give people, and without going in in too much detail in terms of my story, but the one thing I'll say is this: I was never an academic student. I never particularly liked school. I never was somebody who my plans when I talk to you match my actions. I would talk to you all day about how I want to be a lawyer, but then I wouldn't put in the effort and energy into doing it. And I think as a result, a lot of people counted me out. A lot of people said that I was not going to accomplish it. People flat out told me to my face that I would never be a lawyer. And the truth of the matter is that the more that people told me that I wouldn't do it at a young age, I believed it. But then I started to realize that, only one person is in control of the decisions that I make in my life, and that's ultimately me. And so I will say this: especially when you talk about trying to accomplish things that a lot of other people either have no interest in, or may not have the desire, or may not even have the abilities to do. Once you start talking about that, you're going to unearth a tremendous amount of negativity and hate and jealousy that's going to get thrown at you, right? A lot of people are going to tell you you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you don't deserve it, so on and so forth. But the truth of the matter is that that's life. And to be honest with you, that's never going to change. What you basically have to do is you have to learn how to control the volume, right? And you turn that volume down on all that negativity, and you focus on that internal voice, and the voice of those people that are in your corner and that genuinely care about you, that are telling you that you can do it, that are telling you that you can accomplish it, that are telling you that, no matter what your circumstances are, or where you were born, or what your situation is, or whether you have both parents in the household, or whether or not you are a millionaire, or whether you're poor, whatever the situation is, if you put in the energy and the effort, and you have the focus and the determination and the will, you can accomplish whatever you ultimately set your mind to. And if you ever want the stories of people who are in situations you read the stories of people like Oprah Winfrey, you read the story of someone like Keanu Reeves, who's a famous actor, someone like a Sylvester Stallone, like an Albert Einstein, like they experienced failure at such a young age and were told that they would never amount to anything. And the fact that I mentioned their names and you guys are all like, oh yeah, I know who that is, like that goes to show you the level of success that they've reached. So never count yourself out, never be a voice of negativity. Always, you should be the number one voice of positivity and motivation in your minds. And if people are not matching that message, then you need to distance yourself from them.
That is truth. Great advice. That's why you're called the inspirational lawyer. You've been doing it to me since I met you. And I can't imagine how many people I can't imagine. You've been to a lot of high schools. You're in the colleges. You're online during this pandemic that we're in. You're part of a team of people that I know that are still trying to be productive and putting information and motivation out there. So I want to thank you for always doing that for us, the community. Real quick, can you tell us your Young Debaters program? Is that happening this year?
So the Young Debaters program is still happening. It's going to be done virtually within the schools. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I'm going to have to. There's some modifications in terms of competitions and stuff. So that's for this year that may not happen. But I will continue to work with schools, community organizations, libraries to virtually have my debate program. I'm also going to be conducting workshop series focusing, particularly considering the climate, So I've been doing a lot of workshops focused on social justice issues, on legal issues in terms of knowing your rights, also in terms of like the skill development piece and how to network and navigate from a virtual standpoint. So I'm doing a lot of that as well.
Yeah, you are. It's pretty amazing. And your website is richardcelestinllc.com.
Yes. That's
And
so that richardcelestinllc.com is my educational consulting website.
Okay.
And The Inspirational Lawyer is the motivational speaking workshop development website.
Okay, awesome. And then the last book that you published, what was it called again?
So my book that I self-published was The Hard Facts About Soft Skills. I also self-published an ebook called Embracing Adversity, Finding Strength Through Life's Greatest Challenges. And I also was a contributing author in a book called Our Stories, Our Voices, Black Men Tell Their Truth.
That is a great book. When I saw that, I was like, wow, all these men came together and created this piece of art. And it's very motivating. It's a must read. Now, let me ask you a question. I'm gonna have to find out if Elmont Library has your book on their shelves. And I hope they do. And if they don't, I'm gonna hit you up. I'm gonna hit them up so we can make sure we get the books on the shelf, okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you so much for being with us, Richard Celestin, ESQ. He is the inspirational lawyer. I hope our youth today got some good information, some good inspiration on what it means to be a lawyer or to get a legal field. We talked a lot about dedication, motivation, staying on course, dreaming, knowing what you want to do, and surround yourself with the right people. That's always important, even as a teenager. Even if you just turned 13, surround yourself with the right people so you can be anything you want to be. My name is Matt Pernod. This is Chat with Matt. Thank you, Elmont Library. Thank you for the youth for joining us today. Have a great one. Hopefully, we'll be talking to a bunch of lawyers soon. Have a great one. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.